Hello, everybody. 3 darn months ago, I posted in the community tab here asking if you guys would like me to do a review of the entire Expanse series altogether. One person said yes, and I said, okay, I'll try to film that by the end of the week. And then I never did. I got distracted. I put it off, kind of let my depression control me for a little while, whatever. You know, no need to make excuses. I didn't do it, but it's been in the back of my mind. I oftentimes am very late to get things done, but I like to keep my commitments. I like to get things done eventually. So here we are. Actually, you know what? I do need to clarify. I did record that video, and I went through and I talked about each of the 9 novels plus all of the short stories. And I kept it as spoiler free as possible, which was really hard, but it was like over an hour long, and that just didn't work. It wasn't gonna work. It was ridiculous, and trying to keep it spoiler free really made the video suck. It was awful. And so I've been kind of brainstorming and thinking about it, and I'm gonna talk about the series now. That's why you're here. That's why we're here. So I don't have any notes that I'm gonna go off of. I have a couple things in my mind that I know I'm going to talk about, but this is probably not going to be the best video, and I'm not going to talk about plot really at all. The main things I want to talk about is like the characters and just like the overall feeling, my overall reaction to the series, and hopefully there won't be too many things that come to my mind later that I forgot to say. Hopefully I'll think of the things I actually want to say here. First of all, The Expanse. I listened to all of the novels on audio over the course of almost a year. It was like a solid 10 months, I think. And I read the short stories, mostly the short stories and novellas, in print form. The local library had a copy. The only reason I actually finished this series is just that my local library had all of the audiobooks available on the Libby app, which is what I use to listen to audiobooks. I'm a cheapskate. I'm not going to pay for audiobooks. So anyway, they happen to have all 9 of them. They did not have the short story collection on audio, so that's why I read that one in print. And I guess before I forget, let me just say, the short stories were the best part of the series for me. I like short stories in general, and I don't know if it's because I read them in print or because I just usually like short stories anyway. I don't know what it was, but they really hit. Like, not all of them are fantastic, but the ones that are good are way better than any of the novels, in my opinion. So I'm not going to go into details about it, but like a lot of them are really good, and I recommend that you read them. Let's talk about the actual series. What is the series about? So The Expanse. So up front, I guess I'll tell you, like, I probably would not have finished this series if I had read it in print, or maybe I would have finished it eventually, but not as fast as I did in audio. On audio, I just listened to them basically back to back with a few things in between, but not really, hardly. In print, I like to kind of bounce around a lot and read a lot of different things. So I think it would have taken me a lot longer, and honestly my interest probably would not have lasted past book 6. I think after book 6 the series kind of fell off. It starts really strong. Let me say the first book is pretty good. It's like pretty solid. If I had to give it a rating, I normally don't like to do ratings, but let's just say out of 10, I'd give the first book like a 7, leaning towards an 8 maybe. It's pretty solid. It's a lot of fun. Second book I think is better. It brings in this character, Bobby Draper, and she's a great addition to the whole overall experience. And also, we just get to see more, and like we learn more, and it's just a fun book. I actually like, and it's got a lot more action. That's what really pulled me into the second book. There's a lot more things actually happening. The first book is a lot of setup, which is okay. So second book was better. Let's say first book 7, second book 8. Third and fourth, I'm like, these are interesting, but like, I want some answers. What's going on here? I'm trying to figure things out, and I'm not getting the answers I want. So kind of was like starting to lose interest. But then book 5 was really solid, was really good. But at the same time, book 5 like changes the paradigm of the entire series. It's very differently structured. Again, avoiding plot, avoiding spoilers. I'm not going to tell you too much about it, but like it's a fun book, but it's a very different book than the rest of the series, and it still doesn't give you all those answers that I was craving, right? Books 6, 7, 8, 9, they really just change, and the whole series just goes down a different path than what I had really hoped for, which is fine. Like, don't be discouraged because I'm not like super hot on this series, because a lot of people really are. People talk about how it's like the best thing ever or whatever. But honestly, I was thinking about this. I think this whole series for me, to make this series perfect for me personally, it would have been like 4 books, maybe 5 books, and it would have just focused on like getting answers to what the stuff that's happening. So sorry, I keep referencing like I want answers. So let's talk about the setup of this book, of this whole series. So it takes place in the future. Humanity is occupying like most of the solar system. There's people living on the moon. There's people living on Mars, the moons of Jupiter and Saturn, I believe, as well, and like asteroid belts and stuff. There's a lot of political conflict between Earth and Mars, but also the people who live on the outer asteroid, like on the asteroids and on the moons and things like that, they're called the outer planets. They kind of see Earth and Mars as a common enemy. So it's sort of like a 3-way Cold War standoff kind of situation. And there's just a lot of tension, which is cool, which is good. If you like that political tension and political maneuvering kind of thing in your stories, it's cool. But in this context, so the inciting incident is like there's this, let's just call it a germ. It's like a thing. They call it the proto-molecule. So it's like an alien germ kind of thing that is discovered, and it infects people, and it like destroys your whole body. It turns you into this weird like zombie thing. In the first book, that's my phone. In the first book, they call people who are infected, they call them vomit zombies because they just start puking everywhere, which spreads the disease. Very minor spoiler for book 1. It's not a big spoiler, but anyway. Get out of here. And so that kind of kicks things off. Like they're trying to find what happened, where did this thing come from, what is it doing, because it doesn't just get you sick, it doesn't just kill you, it seems to do other stuff too. So that's kind of cool. And then there's this ice hauler, they call it, the ship that like brings ice from the asteroids or from moons or whatever. It harvests ice and brings it to people. On this ice hauler, you have sort of our main characters. There's Jim Holden, there's Amos, there's Alex, there's Naomi, there's a few other people, and they receive like a distress signal, so they go to investigate, and things start happening. Holden, he starts out being kind of an interesting character, and he does this thing where he just sends out this broadcast to the entire solar system. Hey, this thing just happened. We just got attacked by this whatever. Like I'm trying to avoid spoilers. And that like he causes this huge conflict, right? I mentioned like Earth, Mars, outer planets. There's a lot of tension. Basically starts a solar system wide war on accident. And I thought it was just kind of interesting. It's almost like, right now we have social media. Apparently in this series they don't have social media, but they still have the ability to like just broadcast messages out into the ether and anybody can pick them up. And so I thought that was kind of an interesting like technological curveball in a way. It's sort of a strange thing. There is a lot of fun like futuristic things in this series that seem very plausible. One thing that constantly, sorry, I'm bouncing, my thoughts are kind of bouncing around here, sorry. One thing that kept coming up in my brain as I was listening to these stories is how terrible all the food sounds. It sounds so miserable to like live out in space. The outer planets people, the Belters, that's what they're called, the Belters, sorry. It's been a little while since I finished the last book. They eat a lot of this food called kibble, and it's just like processed to be small and portable and like bite-sized, but it's like highly nutritious or whatever. And they call it kibble because it's like dog kibble basically. And I'm like, sounds terrible. And every time they go to a restaurant, they're always ordering like noodles with black sauce, and like the protein is like reconstituted mushrooms and fungi that was grown in a vat, and like it just sounds awful. It just sounds like veganism but worse. And I was a vegan for a little while. I didn't last very long. I attempted to do veganism for a month just to see what it was like, and I lasted 2 weeks. It was so hard. But then another time later on, I went vegetarian for a whole year just to prove to myself that I could do it. That's beside the point. I don't know why I'm talking about that in this Expanse video. Hey, speaking of things that are beside the point, let's interrupt this video to talk about something else. The sponsor of today. No, I'm just kidding. I don't have a sponsor. That'd be crazy if I did. You may have noticed, if you've watched any other videos, that this one has lower video quality. And to succinctly explain why, it's because I'm using my webcam. I used to use my webcam for all of my videos until a friend of mine got a new phone and he gave me his old phone. It was a very nice thing of him to do. He gave me this Google Pixel 6a phone, and it's a really nice phone, better than anything I would ever buy for myself. And so I started recording my videos on the phone. It has a really good camera. The problem with that is I use Canva to edit my videos. I know. It's terrible. I know. Some of you are like, what? What did he just say? If you know about editing videos, you should message me. You should comment and help me out because I'm terrible. And I use Canva because it's free and it's online. But the thing with Canva is if you upload a video that's like too high a quality, so, well, just in my case, the videos I was recording, it would only let me upload a video that's max like 6 minutes, like chunks. And so if I wanted to record my monthly update videos, they're like 20, 25 minutes long. And the raw footage is sometimes 30 or 35 minutes. And so I would have to record for 5-minute chunks and upload all of them and then splice them together in Canva. And it was like driving me crazy. So I've decided my longer videos, I'm just going to go back to using the webcam. I'm sorry, I know the video quality sucks, but honestly, I'm not here to look good. Like, I just want you to be able to hear what I'm saying. That's the important part. There's nothing visually interesting here. I'm sitting in a hotel room in Lubbock, Texas, you guys. There's nothing interesting here to watch. So my shorter videos, I can still do those on the phone. The Stormlight Archive recaps and stuff like that, I'll still do those short because they're short and the files aren't too big. If anybody knows of like a good online free video editor that's better than Canva, let me know because I haven't been able to find anything good that will actually work for me. And there's no way I'm going to pay for a video editor. Like, I'm sorry. I'm just not going to. I'm a cheapskate, and like, until I make money from YouTube, I'm not going to spend money to make YouTube videos. I'm sorry. I have 5 children, and I'm the sole breadwinner in the family. So, I'm just not going to spend money to make YouTube videos. I'm sorry, you guys. As a person who periodically has to fight off the urge to just delete all my videos and stop doing YouTube, like, I'm not going to spend money to do YouTube. The only money I've ever spent on YouTube is I bought this microphone. I bought a 2-pack. I sent one to Jordan. Jordan, my Stephen King buddy. We used to do the Stephen King videos together. I sent one to him, and he never used it. That's the only money I've ever spent to do this. Okay, sorry. We're getting way off track. Back to The Expanse. What have we talked about so far? The setting, the basic inciting incident. Yeah, so after learning, there's this germ, it's infecting people. They're trying to like quarantine. They're trying to also study it, figure out what's going on. And you're like, this is really cool. And they don't know if it's just like a naturally occurring thing, but it seems like maybe the prevailing theory by the end of the first book, I believe, is like it was maybe like slingshotted. It was fired toward the earth from an alien source somewhere like light years away, possibly. And so it's kind of cool. Like it's a weapon, or it's some sort of thing that we don't know. I'm not going to say too much because that's already getting into later books. I don't want to spoil anything. It's pretty good. Like, it is worth the read. I'd give the series overall probably like when I finished it at first. When I first started thinking about doing this video, I was like, oh, it's a 5 out of 10. Like, it's a perfect in the middle. Like, it's not really that great, but it's not bad either. I take that back, though. I think the more I've thought about it, it's at least a 6. It's pretty solid. There's a lot of fun stuff, but there's also a lot kind of dragging it down. The action scenes feel very clinical. Like, when they're fighting in space, they're also talking about, like, Newton's laws of inertia and motion and stuff. Like, if you throw a punch, it's gonna shoot you back too, because there's no resistance or whatever. Like, and so it kind of takes you out of the action. That was one thing that sort of bothered me. Sorry. So getting back, not to spoil it, but you don't really get good answers about the protomolecule until like way later in the series than I would have liked, and those answers I didn't feel are very good. Like, sorry, that kind of is a big spoiler. Like, I don't feel like you ever get really good answers about the protomolecule. Some people might argue with me about that, and that's okay. Let's talk about the characters, and I think we'll call it good for this. I think that I've already said basically all I want to say. James Holden, and Naomi. Super boring. Honestly, I didn't like them. After the first book, they're just like, James Holden is like a one-trick pony, and they even talk about it in the series, how like he keeps doing the same thing. He keeps making the same mistakes, and you as a reader, you're like, Jim, you didn't learn last time. And then other characters are like, hey, Jim, you didn't learn last time. Like, so that's kind of funny. I mean, he's a nice guy. He is a believable character. I will give you that. I guess maybe he is a good character, but I didn't find him intriguing. I didn't find him interesting, but he does seem like a really nice guy. He's the kind of guy I wouldn't mind hanging out with. Like, he's a friendly dude. And Naomi is kind of the same. Naomi gets a little bit more interesting when you get a little bit of backstory about her, which is typical, right? But even then, I didn't feel like, there was just kind of something missing. Like, Jim and Naomi are sort of like the core of the main characters, and they're supposed to, I feel, you're supposed to identify with them the most, and they're the ones that I enjoyed the least. Amos, let's talk about Amos. So in the first book, everybody talks about like, oh, the character work is top notch, it's so good. I didn't feel like the character work was very good in the first book, at least not for the main crew. And even in the second book, it wasn't until like the third book. So back up, sorry. In the first book, when I started listening, I'm like, why do people like this Amos guy? Literally, his whole character is just that he swears a lot. And that really bothers me. Not the language. The language doesn't bother me. It bothers me when people think that's character development. Like, oh, this character is so interesting because he's the foul-mouthed one. And you see that a little too often in fiction. Like, oh yeah, this character's so fun because he swears a lot. Ha ha ha. And it's like, that's not a character trait. Well, I guess it is. Sorry. But that's not like interesting. But I had to amend that opinion because later on, like book 3, 4, especially book 5, and there's a novella that takes place, I think, right before book 5 that you definitely need to read before you read book 5. It's called The Churn. At that point in the series, I really started to fall in love with Amos. He is fantastic. He is awesome. He's a very cool character. He becomes more than just the foul-mouthed guy, right? Alex as well. Alex is like really fun because he's just so like chill. The narrator, the audiobook narrator, gave him this sort of like southerner drawl because it says in the story, in the books, that he's from the Mariner Valley on Mars, and they have a similar drawl as like the southern United States, and so he kind of talks like a cowboy a little bit, and like I don't know, something about that voice, it was just like soothing in a way. And he's like a really cool guy, and he's the pilot, and he's very competent. It's fun to read about competent people, obviously. And when you learn a little bit more about his backstory as well, he's done some really terrible things, but he's a really good guy now, kind of thing. So I liked him a lot. So again, like Amos and Alex, I actually liked them a lot more than Jim and Naomi, sorry. There's a few other characters that are sort of side characters to start with. They become more central later on. Bobby, I already mentioned. Bobby is awesome. Honestly, from the very beginning, like from the first time you see her to the last time you see her, she's an awesome character. She's sort of like a girl boss kind of character, but I don't feel like it's played for just like pandering. It's not a cliche. Like is she a Marine? Yeah, I think she's a Marine, and she's like constantly lifting weights because she lives in low gravity, so she's always like trying to maintain her muscle and her bone density and all this stuff. And she wears power armor, and she's just like a super lethal force in battle. But she's also a cool person. Like, she's a really well done character. Avisarala is this like political person back on Earth who is like what do they call her? She's an undersecretary in the UN. So she's kind of like at the top of the heap that's running things in the solar system. And she has a really interesting character. Again, at the very beginning, I kind of didn't like her because it was like, oh, she's just foul-mouthed. Like, that's her character. But you learn that that's not all she has going for her. Avisarala has sort of like her public image and then her real attitude behind the scenes, and it's fun to see that dynamic because she's older, she's a grandmother, but she's also like pretty crass. Like, she says some things that are really pretty vulgar, to be honest, but she's fun. Who else? Miller. I really liked Miller in the first book, and I felt like he was done dirty. Any spoilers I'm giving you are only from the first book, and they're very mild, but like, Miller has this attitude. I've kind of talked about this before, where my attitude is like, in real life, I'm just a normal person. Like, I'm not violent, I'm not vulgar or whatever, but like sometimes when I read fiction, I want to see it go over the top. And so Miller, he's not afraid to kill people. He's a detective. He's investigating a missing person, and he's part of the he's like one of these people that discovers this weird germ kind of thing. And And like when people get in his way, he just blows their brains out, or like he knows that like they've done something wrong or whatever, and he should arrest them and wait for them to go to trial, but he just murders them. And like other characters are like, you can't do that, and Jim Holden is like, how dare you? And I'm just like, you go, Miller. Like, that is so cool. Where in real life, of course, I would be horrified, but in the story, I loved it. I thought it was really, really awesome. I love Miller. And who else? There's a lot of like little minor characters. What people say about the character development is, it is true. It is really good. I think maybe I should just leave it at that. It is cool. I'm not trying to spoil anything, but think about the title of the series, The Expanse. So throughout the series, you see a lot of expansion, and you see a lot of like, hint, hint, wink, wink. It's a pretty cool series. Again, not really my cup of tea exactly. I'm not really into space opera in general, to be honest. But it was enjoyable because I had access to the audiobooks. It was worth a listen for me. And I think that's all I have to say. So thank you, dear people. I haven't uploaded anything at all this whole month. I've been kind of just dealing with stuff, and so this is the best I could do right now. I hope you're having a great day. I hope all your wishes and dreams come true. I don't know why I said that. How should I end this video? Definitely read the short stories and the novellas. They're really good. I'll see when I have a chance to edit this video. I am traveling at the moment for work. This whole week is going to be kind of crazy. So it might be a little while before this video actually comes out. But hey, at least I finally recorded it. I hope you're having a good one. Keep reading. Toodles.